Hey, welcome to A Game for Your Thoughts. Today we're talking about Fallout 1. So Fallout 1 is the first game in the Fallout series. It was released by Interplay in 1997. The story of Fallout takes place in an alternate universe where after World War II, the world kind of started taking off with nuclear power and energy and just totally changed the course of the world. But resources started running very thin in about our modern time, like in 2022 or whatever it was. I don't even know. It's such a complicated, cool lore story that's actually explained pretty well. But anyways, at one point in like the 2070s, the resources started running really low and it started a world power thing over resources. And so China invades Alaska, so US annexes Canada and takes back Alaska. And then there's a big nuclear war that absolutely just annihilates everything. So this takes place at least 100 years after all this, where the world has just been absolutely devastated by nuclear fallout. There's mutated creatures and people, and just the whole world is a total mess. There's a bunch of different factions and groups running small little towns and just doing anything they can to survive. You play as a vault dweller, a person from Vault 13. So the vaults are places that the government worked with a company called Vault Tech to build these underground safe places, and there's actually a little bit more sinister motivations behind these underground safe places. So you play as one of these vault dwellers that lives in Vault 13, and in Vault 13 their water purification chip breaks. So the vault leader is like, hey man, head out into the wasteland, find us a new vault ship, and just kind of see what's going on out there. So it is up to you to head out into the wasteland, find the vault ship, and move on with your life. One of the coolest things about Fallout 1 is it builds up this post-apocalyptic wasteland really well. It does a great job of explaining the lore and kind of what everything's all about. Talking to the characters reveals a lot of information about the locations you're in and these cool and interesting characters you come across and kind of what they're all about and how they rose to their position of power or how they desire to rise to a position of power and just kind of their roles in the wasteland. It's cool to see all this stuff, and it's built upon in cool and interesting ways that it's just fun to learn about. Since this is an open world RPG, there's tons of dialogue choices that you get to make as a player, and these choices affect how things play out. Whether you follow specific groups and help them rise to power, or if you attack certain other groups to lower their levels of power, and just things like that that are cool and interesting, that your choices absolutely have a cool effect on the world. And it's neat to see what choices that you make leads to the downfall of something else or some other unknown factor that you didn't really realize when you were making your choices, as all your choices really do matter. And I found that super cool. Having these branching dialogues leads to some really cool conversations with the NPCs that are interesting. They're very well written and very well put together, and you have to be very careful with what you say, because if you say the wrong thing, it could lead to a very nasty battle, and you're going to have to reload your save or play it out and see how things go. It's really cool, and just how fun everything branches out. Lots of the small side quests you come across really show the terrors of the wasteland, and that really terrible people get positions of power, and that the people that are trying to do good and be better for the world are the ones that are usually getting stepped over rather than the small little farm that's struggling. And it's just neat to see how this world plays out and how much you can have an effect on this thing and swing the balances of power. It's really a lot of like balances of power between these different factions and groups and people, and just how terrible some people are and how great some people are, and how the great people are always being mistreated and the terrible people are the ones who are feared, but they have those positions of power over everyone else in the wasteland. It's just neat world building that is done so well, and it's just so much fun to follow along with. Well, there are lots of side quests and small activities to do, and just overall exploration. The main quest is still pretty interesting. Overall, in like terms of events, there are a few twists and turns, but the things that do happen feel impactful and interesting. And when it does come down to the part where you have to choose to be a good guy or a bad guy, your choice really does make a huge impact on how things play out. And I thought that was great, as your position is a very meaningful one in the overall story, and your choices absolutely do lead to many different branching ways to get to the end goal. And there are a few different endings depending on how you play things out, and it's just cool to just try things out and see what choices affect different things. As you can tell, conversation is a huge thing in this game, and it's all very well written and very well put together. That makes sense, and it tells more of the story, builds the world, introduces some cool and interesting characters that you get to learn a lot about and spend some cool time with. It's just so fun to follow this world and follow these characters, and it's just a great time being in the Fallout world, even though it's not necessarily the most positive or bright looking world. As for the story, I really enjoyed the main story, as it was cool and interesting, and just, there's this interesting world and lore and story that's built upon in cool ways. The conversations you have with other NPCs are so much fun and just to follow along, and the writing is great, as it's got a little splash of humor to it too. It doesn't take itself entirely serious, but it's always a little bit on the darker side in terms of its humor. It's like, ugh, I don't know if that's totally appropriate, but it was pretty interesting and funny. And it's just the overall story was so much fun. It was cool to see that there is a clear good and bad side, and however you want to go about it is up to you. Because the bad guys certainly do make a good point for them, and sometimes the good guys aren't entirely the most positive thing for the world itself. So just the overall world story and lore and just writing in Fallout was so much fun, and it's really enjoyable. For the gameplay, it's a very weird one because this game was coming out when RPGs were kind of first starting, and it's like a point and click turn-based action adventure RPG. And it's cool as you have your stats and your character, and how you choose to build your character is totally up to you, which I love. Not a whole lot of games really do this anymore. Games have like stats and skill trees, but like none of them really just feel as customizable as like these earlier RPGs are. And Fallout 1 is a great example of this, as it just does it so well that it really feels customizable, that every time you play and you throw different stats into different places, you do feel like you're having an entirely different experience in how you approach things. It's cool to see how many branching pathways you can create within just the gameplay of depending on what stats you assign where. It's so fun and interesting to see the wide variety of characters you can create. This game is a little difficult starting out with because there's no big tutorial to walk you through everything, and you really have to just track down a game manual online and learn it from there. That's the best way I learned, and I think it's the best way for you to learn. It's very jarring at first. If you go into this expecting it to tell you everything right off the bat, you're going to be very confused and very unsure. It's definitely a lot of trial and error and learning things, but I think tracking down the manual and learning it and reading it for yourself is easily the best way to go. But in terms of like the actual gameplay, it's actually pretty simple. So there's two main screens. There's like the action screen where you're exploring, moving around the world, talking with characters, entering and exiting combat, performing combat, and then there's like the travel screen, and this is where you're moving around the wasteland and coming across random encounters, coming across new and different places to explore. The main adventure screen is one of my favorites because you literally have to explore, talk to every character, and just do everything you can in every single location to advance, because sometimes the thing you need to advance is hidden in like a weird corner in a bookshelf, which seems kind of dumb, but it's fun getting there because you come across these cool and interesting characters, and it's just fun to chat with them. And then there's some characters who just straight up don't want to chat, and you have to enter combat with them, and it's just really fun. And the combat is really interesting. Since it's a turn-based combat system, you also have specific amounts of points to use in each turn, so you can use these points to move around, change your weapons, perform actions, even reload your guns. Things like that all play into this action point system, and depending on your agility stats, you get more action points. So it's kind of tricky when you're building your character, because it's good to have a lot of action points so you have more points to use in combat, but it's also good to have more strength so you can do more damage in combat. So it's a cool system that really plays well off itself and the stats of your character. But entering combat is really enjoyable as you have all these enemies and you can choose how you want to go about fighting them. Some enemies you just don't even want to mess with until later on, until you get some like good weapons, but there's certainly a good like learning period where you're just using like a bat to punch a scorpion, or like a little pistol to shoot a rat, and it's just super simple at first, but it gets very complex very quickly, and you have to upgrade your weaponry and have more ammo and just different ways to approach situations. And you can also get companions that'll follow you into combat and help you out, and those guys are absolutely my heroes, man. Those guys saved me so many times. Dog meat just absolutely got me out of everything, and they take so much damage, but it's a big bummer when you're out in the wasteland and something just totally annihilates them, and you get to watch them fall to pieces in front of your eyes, so you can reload your save and get them back. Certainly one of the most frustrating things about the combat is it's like a percentage-based thing, so every single time you have an action, you have a specific percentage of how likely it is to hit your opponent, and it's really dumb when you have a baseball bat and you're trying to hit a rat that's literally right in front of you, and you have like an 89% chance, and you swing and you miss, and you swing and you miss, and you swing and you miss, and it's like, seriously? It's dumb, and it gets frustrating at times, but you just have to keep calm and keep playing, because it gets better as time goes on and as you improve your stats. It makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more consistent with your hitting, but at the beginning you're definitely going to be missing a lot of your hits. Graphically, this game hasn't aged the best, but it does have a cool charm to it in terms of how it aged. It has kind of like the older Zelda games where it's a little pixelated, but it still has a cool charm to it that's a little bit sadistic for the Fallout, and it's kind of fun to say that because it's totally true. This game has got a very dark and not super awesome tone, but it plays into it very well, where it's very humorous with itself and the way it presents everything, and the sound design is incredible. Like all the guns shooting and talking to the characters, the voice acting is actually pretty well done, though there are certain like special key characters you talk to and it does like a close-up like on their face and it's like a little bit more animated. Those character models don't look super awesome, but I've definitely seen worse character models, I will say that. Like I said, the sound design is really cool when you have like, you're fighting like the super mutants and one of them pulls out a minigun and just like annihilates one of your opponents, or like even your partner, and like watching them fall to pieces. It's like animated in kind of a weird way that makes it far more terrible than it appears on screen. You're like, oh, that sounds gross. It's cool. It just, everything technically is very well done. This game runs and functions pretty well for being a game like 22 years old. It's great. In the end, I do say Fallout is a cool and interesting game when it comes to the story, the lore, and pretty much everything else. But the biggest thing is it is not for everyone, which is a hard thing to say because you don't know, I don't know what kind of person you are, so I can't be like, hey, Julie, you're going to really love Fallout, or hey, Mark, you're going to hate it. And it's just hard to specifically say what you will like, because this is kind of really like, what do you like? The story and world and lore is super cool and interesting, and I really liked the gameplay for myself. It is very slow to start with, but if you be patient with it and really learn it, it can become very cool and interesting. So it's if you're willing to be patient with it. If you're not and you want instant action and instant fun, okay, I shouldn't say that because I think it's all fun. But if you want a little bit more of like instant reward, then this might not be for you. But if you're cool to be patient with the game and learn with it and become better as it goes, you're gonna have a great time with Fallout. I think it's a cool and interesting game that I think you should try out. I mean, it's like $5 on Steam and goes on sale for like $2 every now and then, so it's like a super easy game to track down, find, and pick up and play. So I totally recommend you try it out just to try it. And if you don't like it, well, at least you tried. And the first time I played it, I wasn't super into it, but I went back in with a little bit more of an open mind and a little bit more patience, and I had so much fun, and now it's actually one of my more favorite PC games to play. It's super cool and interesting, and I totally think you should at least give Fallout 1 a try. Hey, thank you so much for watching my video on Fallout 1. Let me know down in the comments, what did you think about Fallout 1? And while you're down there, if you want to help me out and hit like, subscribe, and the bell to get notified every time I post a new video, that would be great. And if you want to see more of me, I'm over on Twitch at twitch.tv/agameforyourthoughts. I'm streaming there all the time, and I would love to see you there. Thanks again for watching the video. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and don't forget that the key to success is succeeding, and we'll see you guys next time on A Game for Your Thoughts.